Oh, good.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
Right, guys, so thank you for joining us. Apologies from Boris for ruining this webinar for you guys, but we are delivering it nonetheless, and we hope that if you're watching it live or if you're watching on YouTube, that you get a heck of a lot of value from it, and you can take the principles of what you and the strategies that you learned today and just put them straight away into your own training, nutrition, your goal setting, whenever whenever the gyms do open. And believe you me, we are just as frustrated as you guys from our training perspective and from a business perspective, but it's our job to make sure that when they do open, you guys know exactly what to do. So I'm going to kick things off for the first, say, 15 minutes. After that, this homeless man that you're maybe going to see on the right-hand side of the screen, it's actually a homeless man, it's actually Ali. He's going to then kick off about nutrition, and then probably the better looking of the three of us, we'll finish off. All right. So if you have any questions, please do just ask at any point. If I'm speaking, I will probably miss that there's a question, so I'll look for yourself, Ali and Clara. I call them Clary. So anyone watching, please feel free to call them that as well. It's like just make me aware. But the amount of times I've said to Rona, I've got a call with Clary tonight. I mean Clary tonight.
That's hilarious.
Anyway, I digress. The aim of today's webinar is just to give you guys like plan structure and for myself, the fundamental aspects of training post COVID-19. Now we know it's not going to go away, but we mean when the gyms open, and from the time that you've had away from the gym, what you can do with your programming, how to approach it, etc., etc. Ali's going to jump in, discuss the nutritional principles that are going to help fuel your physique after potential weeks and weeks and weeks of poor nutritional choices. And then Clara's going to jump in and explain the importance of goal setting and holding yourself accountable, ensuring that you progress as you intend and as you want to. So, start off with training. Now, there's a few key considerations that we have to take on board. You will be very, very excited, right? We all are, our clients all are, but before you go in, all guns blazing, you'll go in, you'll be like, right, it's fucking full body day. I'm going to do 10 sets leg press, superset with 10 sets leg extension, 10 sets bicep curls. Whoa, slow down, please. Halt, right there. So let's say, for example, that you haven't had the available cash to go out and buy some equipment and you've been using beanz for the past 3 or 4 months. If you are to go in full guns blazing, you are going to be an absolute cripple the next day and be unable to get out of bed if you go in and do a full ass leg day. Now, on the flip side of that, perhaps you have went out and you've got yourself some dumbbells, you've got yourself a barbell, whatnot. You might perhaps be able to recover a little bit quicker and not be as walking like you've had up your bum than the people that have just used bands. So this is where you have to take in consideration that the gym won't just open for you and say, right, go on, you go, you can spend 2 hours in there. There might be a little bit of time restrictions. So that's where your like exercise selection might be slightly limited. They maybe have taken some equipment away, or they've said, right, you know what, you can just use this zone. I've seen some gyms doing zones. So you're going to need to get the sort of the rundown from the gym on what you can do. And I would ask that you please plan your session in before you go in. If you struggle and you're unsure of how to program, we've got a program here in a few slides. Drop one of us a DM. If not, go on the website to get a free program that you can download from there. It'll give you a rough idea. But you're going to have to be smart, right, with your volume. You may have followed the old bro split of doing 4 sets of 10. Now, if you've not done 1 set of 10 on a hack squat in 4 months and you go do 1 set of 10, guarantee your body will let you know about it, right? And you will maybe perhaps almost fall over at some point after that set, which is not a bad thing. But not only that, you know, if you're like us and if you're watching this webinar, we train very, very hard. And we market that as well. We tell you guys to do that. However, your nervous system is not ready for failure at the current moment, right? It has been getting banded work, foam roller hack squats, all right, banded chest presses, right? To take a muscle straight into failure, not only a muscle, but to do like a Widowmaker set, right? I'm all about, going absolutely crazy, headbutting the wall and stuff like that. However, but to do that would just be stupid, right? I was way to use a different language there, but I'll be a bit more grammatically correct. It would just be silly. So what I would do is I would go in and I would perhaps stop a few reps shy of failure. I'll get to that in a few slides. Other key considerations. No one can spot you from 2 meters away. All right? If you watch, me and Ali training together, or whenever Clara joins us every now and then, we're right in there in the last few reps. So if perhaps you did take a set to that failure point, no one's helping you at the bottom of that squat, unfortunately, or the barbell or the dumbbells, whatever it is. But another thing to take into consideration is, I've said it before, you're going to be extremely sore for the first couple of weeks. It's all right. Don't get frustrated. Don't get annoyed. Give yourself some time off. 2 days on, 1 day off. 2 days on, 1 day off. All right, and at least 2 full days off every 2 weeks is how I would start before you go into your push-pull legs, your upper lower off, or whatever it is that you are doing. And lastly, some movement patterns, and I said this on a consult call today, need to be relearned. You think, what does that mean? A client texts me, they'd used a facility that's available in Dundee here to rent out, and he said it took him 4 sets to warm up on the hack squat. His body had just forgotten how to do it. Hips were sore, knees were sore, etc., etc. So you've got to take in consideration that warm up, make sure that you're thinking about it, there's intent, there's initiation, you're not just getting excited because you're back in the gym. So how to approach training. I know you're probably thinking, Vaughn, you're speaking really fast. Well, get used to it. Hit pause if you're watching on YouTube and scroll back and watch it. But look back at your old program as a guide. That's exactly where you start. Don't look at your banded workout from home. Look at your old program. Look at the volume, the sets, the reps, how much sets you're doing across the week, also within one session, right? Because if you are like us, you want to go in, you want to give it the fucking beans, you want to hit a PB that first session. Of course you do. You're going to be in the gym for 3 more months. However, are you actually feeling the muscle working? Ali put up a great post about this, or maybe he's not posted it yet. He sent me on WhatsApp today.
Tomorrow,
there's a plug. If you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be today because it's uploaded on Friday. The intent will be key. So if you are doing a hip thruster, let's just make sure that when you put the weight on the bar and you're in that bottom position, initiating with the glutes, thinking, right, I always just say, easy, turn the muscle on, squeeze it before you start to move. Now, again, what we said in the last slide is you might be a bit restricted with your time, right? You might be getting only an hour 3 times a week. I know that one of my clients, Indra, not sure if she's in here at the current moment or watching this later, has been told her gym, when it opens, 1 hour, 3 times a week max. So we just adapted our program to be full body. And I've had to say rest periods, which I usually say as required, minimal, to try and get it in. However, because we're not working to failure, she should be able to recover from that and get some sets in, right? So look at your previous max load. You're thinking, right, but Vaughn, I used to hip thrust 100 kilos. Can I not just go into that? I'd recommend dropping it by about 15 to 20%. You're like, wow, that's a lot. I'm like, yeah, well, that's going to 80 kilos. However, if you were to use myself as an example, I'm now training at a facility, only took a couple of weeks to get back to previous top set load and then another week to be at new personal best. Muscle memory, but only from still approaching the set like you were doing it pre-lockdown. And if the first set feels okay and feels a bit easy, okay, maybe up it by 2.5, 5 kilos, but don't go nuts because you're just going to pay for it later. Again, something Ali said in his video, and you'll see it if you go on his Instagram, quality sets over quantity. More is not better in this instance. If you were to go into the gym and do 10 to 12 quality sets in an hour versus 20 fluff sets, Vaughn, what's a fluff set? Right, cool. Let's say your top set's 100 kilos on a hip thruster and you're just doing 20 kilos. That's fluff, right? So if we were to talk about like a rate of perceived exertion, and you're like, Vaughn, that's a big fancy word. What does that mean? Right? Scale of 1 to 10. 10, ow, this really fucking hurts. I can't do any more. 1, wow, this is really easy. Go for about a 7 or an 8, right? In that first sort of couple of weeks. And then thereafter build up until you're reaching the 10. And if you're fucking one of our clients, you're doing an 11. All right?
Whether you like it or not.
Yeah, exactly that. If you don't, you're getting abuse from us and you're checking response on screencast. And what I've said is get more bang for your buck. You're thinking, Vaughn, that sounds like a sexual reference. It's not. What it means is if you have a gym that has equipment like hack squats, machines that you could work large muscle groups, use them over going and doing biceps. Like, please don't go in. There's going to be some idiot that goes in and spends the whole hour looking at himself in the mirror doing bicep curls. Don't be that prick, right? Don't be like Ali, because that's what Ali's going to do.
I wish I'd done that.
Ali doesn't train biceps, by the way, right? But yeah, get more bang for your buck. Let's just do full body stuff. Your leg press, your hack squats, squat variations, deadlifts, pull movements, push movements. Arm work, I honestly probably won't program in for any clients that are watching this that are doing full body. Maybe one or two sets. But as I said, I've already said 12 to 14 sets, and I talked about that RPE, right? You could also call that reps in reserve. The reason I don't say that is because it's just something, it's a training methodology that I don't necessarily like, right? So I use that RPE 1 to 10 scale. But if you were one of those people that wants to use RIR, 1 to 2 RIR in the tank those first couple of weeks. Main thing you're wondering, when to start giving it the beans. Right? Plug podcast, check it out if you haven't already. So I would say after the first 2 to 3 weeks, once DOMS has settled down, once you don't wake up feel like you've been hit by a bus, once you can actually walk normally, right? We shouldn't be at the point where we wake up the next day and we literally struggle to walk the whole day. If we are, we're probably doing too much in the gym, but also we need to maybe just think, right, the body needs a bit of time to adapt. If you're a confident lifter, you're strong and have been, honestly, 10 to 12, 14 days, you'd be absolutely fine. I've said prioritize volume towards weaker body parts. So once you've kind of maybe perhaps done the full body stuff, if you I'm a bit of a hypocrite when I say this because people are saying, well, Vaughn, you shouldn't train your quads as much. And I say, well, fuck it, I love quads. So I'm just going to do it. Right? Right. So as any sort of good teacher says, do as I say, not as I do. What I would do is just your strong body parts, maybe give them sort of two, 3 heavy working sets in that session, but then prioritize it more towards, let's for example say you're weak in your posterior chain. By that I mean your glutes and your hamstrings. More volume towards that in your quads. If you're a bikini girl, of course you're going to be putting more volume towards that anyway. Rep ranges 6 to 12, but also you are going to do some higher rep sets, and we would call that metabolic work. It's just a fancy word for saying high reps, little rest. If you're one of our clients, and you'll see that we program in rest pause, drop sets, cluster sets, whatever it is, stuff that's going to elicit a lot of pain, not a lot of rest, and going to suck, right? So what I done with a lot of clients is, when they've told me they have an hour, right, I've given them 2 working sets on some exercises, and that second set is a rest pause, or it's a big ass drop, right? Or it's a cluster set, something like the FST7 stuff, if everyone remembers that, or muscle rounds. That's what I mean by cluster sets. If you're unsure on what that is, DM Ali, he'll tell you all about it from tomorrow's post. I've said keep volume the same if you're getting stronger. What does that mean, right? If the logbook's progressing, if you're 2-3 weeks in and you continue to get stronger off really, really low volume, don't change it. Just keep doing. And the minute you hit a plateau, the minute that the body part stops responding, little plug here, it's going to be roughly about 6-8 weeks before you're going to need to change anything, then make an adaptation. But there'll be some people that'll go in and they'll run one program as soon as the gym's open, and they'll run that for 6 months and they'll mutate just from application. Now, what could a rotation look like? So we spoke about full body, and some of the things that I've discussed in the past, let's see if I'm on track, 15 minutes, yes, you'll see here, right? So repetitions, I've said 6 to 8. I also said that I've put rest pause on some of the end of the second set, or drop sets. No cluster sets here, but you get it, it's all the same jazz. So you've got posterior chain, that's just a fancy word for glutes and hamstrings, or the back of your body. You've got quads, again, glutes and hamstrings. Then we've got shoulders, back, arms. And you're thinking, whoa, Vaughn, you said that you would program arms. I said maybe, right? I didn't say absolutely not. So that's how it would look, right? If you're thinking, Vaughn, that looks like absolute biz, just head over to the website. You can download something that looks a lot like this. If you have any questions on what tempo is, any of the notes here, again, just have to ask one of us and we can go through that appropriately. So I hope that does help. I think that is my part done. So over to the one and only Mr. Burge.
Right, sweet. Have you unshared your screen, Bob?
Do it through there now. Is it not easier?
I'll just flip through it. You just tell me when you want.
All right, cool, sweet. So starting off, on to nutrition. Vaughn's obviously covered the training part. With the nutrition, the key considerations, which Vaughan has on the screen, the main ones. So key considerations are where to start off. Now, this can be difficult because, as Vaughan did cover earlier, some people might not have been tracking nutrition's been a bit loose. Other people have been tracking, but we don't have the same stimulus of the gym. And then other people are going to want to jump right back into where they were prior. So what I would say is assess your current food intake, and then you would see how your weight goes with the actual training. So with the actual starting weeks. So the same with the training stimulus, you would slowly see how your recovery is. It's the same with food. You're not going to be able to, if you went from bands to a gym, hit the nail on the head straight away, because that's going to be difficult. There's too many variables. So we're looking to come in, depending as well on what phase you're in, but we're looking to come in, find a calorie set point that's either going to take you down in weight if you're dieting, up in weight if you're gaining, or maintaining. So that's the easiest way to start. So what do you do? Food will be goal dependent. It will also be very specific to you as a person. So that makes it hard. We can't give you an exact setup of how to do it, but use the data to make your decisions based on your goals. So some people will need far more food, other people won't, and deal with it and get on with it. So some people will get back in the gym and they'll be able to fire in a lot of food. Some people will go back in the gym and you'll probably find that they don't need to put that much in there. Might be because you don't train hard enough. Could also be that you are someone who just has a very low calorie set point. Some people can just handle more food. So dieting phase first, we'll go into this. This one's a little bit more intricate because in a gaining phase, we can get away with a little bit more, but find the set point using weight. So what I would most likely do is you're going to go in with more stimulus, more volume, depending on what you've been training with at the moment. But you're not going to make any decisions that first week. I would just keep the food where it is, see how your weight is, see how recovery is, and see how performance is. Because remember, food is going to help you perform. Because you don't want to make any rash decisions that's going to make body weight fluctuate, because then you might get stressed out. We know that stress is then going to take you in a little bit of limbo. So have a week just seeing where we are. Calories may become higher based on the increase from output in the gyms, but you're still dieting. So food needs to be controlled. And that's what I mean by slow and steady. Make logical changes, not emotional ones. Because I guarantee you, what Vaughan was saying, people will jump in the gym, they'll get super excited, do every machine in the gym. The same's going to happen with food. If you've been dieting and you're relatively lean, a lot of people might think, yeah, but it's cool because I'm going back in the gym. I'm going on the hack squat. So that means an extra 800 grams of carbs post-workout. It does not work like that. And you need to be very careful. So no, it's not an extra 500 calories a day. It's more slow and steady. See how training is. Get used to being back under heavy load and make sure that you're still progressing in your dieting phase. On to the gaining phase. Now, the more exciting phase, I suppose, in terms of food. And this one you can be a little bit more, well, you still want to be very careful with it, but it will be a little bit easier because the goal is not to be getting super lean, so you can push food in. You can push calories, and how I would start it would just be training days. Again, that will be dependent on how many days you can train in the gym, what your training split is. Obviously, if we're going straight in at full body days, depending on how lower body dominant they are, would depend on calories. But food is fuel, and it's a very useful tool. Don't play all your cards at once. And this is where Vaughan's going to say, what's he talking about? But Add your food in slowly to match performance over the weeks. And the reason Vaughn's going to say that is we could throw in a lot of food, but personally speaking, this is one of the only times in your training life, I'm presuming, unless you're a total beginner, where we're going to reintroduce a heavy training stimulus and reintroduce a lot of calories. And we know that calories are very anabolic. So if we spend perhaps the first month getting back to a good training stimulus, good load, and getting more used to the motor patterns of movements, guess what? We're going to get that muscle memory. You might see some gains with small increments of food. We can then use the food over a longer period to see more progression, because we've all been in the gaining phase before. Vaughn's probably pretty close to this at the moment. I'm sure Matt Chandler, who's in the chat, is as well. You don't want to eat more food. So if you go right back to the calories you were at 4 months ago, it might feel amazing for a week or two. It's not going to feel great in 8 weeks. So be very careful with it, because we have a great tool here where as performance starts to increase and as body weight starts to plateau, you can add more food in. So don't go in all guns blazing. Where to add your calories in? I know everyone's going to be thinking about this. Training days first, because you're just using more energy. Simple, we all know that by now. So start pushing. Again, depending on the split, if you have got leg days in, push those up higher, just because it's going to require more energy. Your peri-workout window. So what's going to happen a lot is people are going to come flying back in. They're just going to eat whenever they want, wherever they want, out of excitement. But if we keep that structure there and we are fueling performance, because remember, everyone who's listening, I hope we are driven by the aim to improve our physique, which is driven by training stimulus, which is driven by performance and food. So the peri-workout window is going to be very important. Prioritize food around training. Don't just throw them in anywhere. I've said this earlier, but don't go right back to where you were prior to lockdown, because there's so many variables that are different now than they were then. Mm-hmm. And the other one with with food, I think this could happen to a lot of people. If you haven't been tracking over the last few months, this is the time to reset and get to work. But there's a couple of reasons why. So none of our clients have done this, so it's brilliant. But if you're someone who has just went, know what, I can't be bothered tracking, you're just eating what you want, chances are you're not taking in as much protein, you're not taking in as much fiber. So what's going to happen when you put in more fiber and protein? You're going to be super full and you're going to have a lot of fiber in your system. It's going to be very different to what you have been doing prior. You need to, again, slowly get back into it. It's not about just turning up and expecting your nutrition to be absolutely perfect a weekend, because that's ludicrous. What you need to do is just take your time with it. Exactly what Vaughn said with the training. There's no rush here. We're getting back to normality in inverted commas. Take time with your food. You could also find that the foods that you go back to aren't going to digest as well. We know we need to digest to be efficiently eating calories. So all those little things you're probably not going to think about need to be put back in. Another one that's not in here, but it does go along with nutrition, water intake. I think most people should be better with water because you're at home all day long unless you're working, but make sure all that stuff's still there. You're rushing back in the gym, you're really excited, make sure you're drinking enough water, make sure all the small elements of nutrition, micronutrients are still in there. Don't just go back to tracking, don't just go back to eating all the protein, because we know protein's the most important. It's not, but that's what will most likely happen. Make sure everything's planned out, because that will make your life so much easier. You don't want to jump back to the gym, have 8 weeks of training super hard, then go, shit, remember what nutrition is? Everything should be planned out in advance and you should know where you are. That is everything I need to say about nutrition.
Mic drop. I'll move on to goal setting. So obviously, I suppose this ties in both to training and to nutrition, but more from like a broader perspective. And it's something that is really important to think about. obviously it's likely that the things that you had envisioned for 2020 have been thrown out the window, or at least that the way that you had planned it to look has changed majorly. So it's really important to sort of take some time to reset, reanalyze, and understand, I suppose, like contextualize where you are now and where you want to head for the remainder of the year. Because the year's not over. Like, we still have optimistically at least 5 months in the gym, hopefully 5.5 of 2020. And again, it's like you've got the rest of your life to do these things. So think about what has happened during this pandemic that sort of set you off track, other than gyms being closed. And it's a really good chance for you to reassess your why and understand why you're engaging in the process of training, paying attention to your nutrition, how that fits in overall to your other life goals. Because if you feel lost with training, if you've found that your motivation is going down the drain, it tends to be because there wasn't a strong enough reason for you to be engaging in that, or it wasn't meaningful enough to you in such a way that you were prepared to continue with those behaviors during this time. So obviously goals will keep you accountable to yourself. And ultimately the reason why we set goals is because we recognize that there's a need to change. And you can even just look back at the last 12, 13, 14 weeks and identify what worked and what didn't work, and why you feel the need to now get back into the gym, set these goals, and almost reset the way you approach training and nutrition, and overall your physique development. So obviously we always hear in any type that you hear anyone speak about goal setting, it'll always be about SMART goals, and it's always like super specific and measurable and all these types of things. And I will get onto that, because I do think that it's valuable to set outcome goals too, and specific and concrete goals. But within that, you need to appreciate, like we've said with training and nutrition, that it's not going to be super straightforward. It's not going to be as easy ever, really, as saying, okay, first month into the gym, I'm going to lose this much weight, or I'm going to be lifting this much, or I'm going to be gaining this much weight. That's not really a flexible approach, and it doesn't really allow for much wiggle room, which is why I think setting both process goals and outcome goals is going to be incredibly important, especially at this time. The main difference between these is that process goals focus, as the name would suggest, on the process as opposed to just the outcome. So when we speak about things like ticking boxes, this is what we're referring to. We're talking about the process to get there. So if your outcome goal is to do a photo shoot and get lean enough for a photo shoot by the end of the year, the process that you'll need to engage in to get there is a daily to-do task, such as getting your steps in, getting your cardio in, getting your nutrition right, and whatnot. And within those process goals, if you place more focus on your action within that goal, within that task, then it can make it so much easier, because these things will add up. So for example, rather than saying I am going to train as much as I can, you can make it a bit more like I'm going to take myself to the gym 3 times a week, rather than saying I'm going to run 5K every day. You can say I'm going to do 30 minutes of cardio every day. So it's probably the same thing, but the focus is different. It's not externally placed. It's very much focusing on what you can do within that moment to help yourself move forward and, take yourself a step closer. Obviously, outcome goals, as I said, they're not the devil. They are important, but they don't really allow for that flexibility that we will need right now, especially if you're only allowed into the gym 3 times a week for an hour. You might not be able to see yourself progressing as quickly as you'd maybe envisioned. So process goals just give you a bit more flexibility, a bit more control, and feeling like you're in control of the situation is really important, especially when everything has been taken away from us. So that's definitely some place that I would start focusing on. The next thing I think is really important, if we move into the next, there you go, is setting SMART goals, as I referred to, but also value-based goals. So when we speak about SMART goals, these refer to both your value-based goals, but also your process and outcome goals. Simple terms, you will have heard this 1,000 times, so I won't bore you with the details, but just make sure that whatever goal you're setting is specific, that you can measure it, that it is likely that you will achieve it, that it's realistic, and that it's also time bound. So don't just give yourself the goal of, I want to lose a stone, because, you know, when, by, how will you do it? What do I need to do? Work your way backwards, and that will give you concrete landmarks to get there. The reason I bring up value-based goals in this instance is, again, because a lot of us might have felt quite disorientated, quite lost during this pandemic. A lot of us have had realizations that we actually hate whatever we were doing before, or that we love whatever we were doing before, or basically it's just given us time to think about where we're at in life. And this is where values come in really handy, because setting value-based goals that tie into your gym and your physique and your health and well-being goals are things that it's goals that will help you stay on track, but from a much, much broader perspective. So if you value something like independence, which is a value that is really important to many people, how can you tie that goal into your willingness to adhere to your diet, into your willingness to train? If you see independence attached to your long-term health and your longevity, then it makes a bit more sense. I maybe chose a wrong example here, but it makes a bit more sense to start putting these things in place now, so that in the long term you can reap the benefits. Something that's maybe a bit more, well, health, the goal of health. If you value health, then these things make a bit more sense, but it just gives you that sort of broader perspective, and you can start to appreciate how training contributes to your mental health and your physical health. You can start to see how taking care of your nutrition, again, and taking care of the small things like drinking enough water, getting enough sleep, getting your micronutrients, how all those things add up. So I would definitely encourage you to spend some time thinking about, from this list or any other values list, which 4 values scream as being your top 4. And if around those you can set SMART goals to make sure that you are living in accordance to these values, and tying those to your health, well-being, nutrition goals too, because that will help you as a guiding process. And again, they're just landmarks around the, you know, in the journey, but they sort of help you stay grounded and make sure that you're not losing track, that the focus doesn't become too much about the number on the scale, that it's a broader picture of, now I'm looking to improve my health, I'm looking to improve my self-confidence, I'm developing myself by doing this, therefore the number on the scale, you know, it's one of those outcome things, but it's understood within a broader context. Can't remember what's on the next slide off the top of my head, so I'm going to get you to.
I think people are wondering where bodybuilding is on that value list there, Clara.
Well, you know, I suppose it could come into health, independence, inner peace.
No, I can't see it there.
Definitely
art,
not.
It could be art. There we go.
So anyway, bodybuilding can come under many umbrellas for you, and however you wish to profess and live that value. But I do think these are just some questions that you can choose to ask yourself now and ahead of the gym's reopening, whenever that is. And I do encourage you to not just like read them and answer them, just reflect on them a little bit, because they will give you useful answers that will at least help you map out what the rest of the year is going to look like for you. So the first question really is, you know, what do I want to achieve in 2020, physique-wise specifically? How would I like to make the most of the time that is left of this year, especially because we all went in really hyped. We were like, yeah, let's get it, let's fucking go. And then this shit went on. So think about how you're going to make sure that 2020 is or lives up to its limited expectations now, and work your way backwards. Understand how much time you've got, and understand how you're going to break those goals down in order for December to be a month of celebration of your goals too. Tied into that, obviously, what do you want the rest of this year to look like for your health, fitness, and well-being? How has it looked so far? What have you been doing over the last 12, 13 weeks? Has your well-being improved? Has it remained the same? Can it improve further? Has it gotten worse? Why is that? So do ask yourself those questions, and if they're challenging, spend more time on them. And if it's uncomfortable, spend even more time on them, because that's where the deep work happens, and that's how all these things tie up. This is the people that you see that are super motivated, who are able to go through these journeys and like live through them in the long term. It's because they found the answers to these questions. if you then look back at what you've been doing up until now and what you plan to do for the rest of the year, click back on that because I can't remember.
I just muted Ali by accident because there was a siren.
Sorry. So yeah, understand what you've been doing up until now and how that's contributed to how you look with the position that you're in at the moment. Understand what you need to do more or less of and what you need to start or stop doing in order to achieve those goals for the year. And as I said at the beginning, understanding your why, understanding why these things matter, the context in which, physical activity, training really hard, taking care of yourself, the context in which that fits, spend some time assessing that, and ultimately understand that it's okay to ask for help and it's okay to not have all the tools and all the answers. And reaching out to other people in the fitness community that can help us, as we've said before, sending any of us a message if you feel like there's any gaps in your knowledge. That's the perfect way to start sort of filling the gaps and just reflecting on how you're going to set.
Ali, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still there. Clara's froze.
No, she's back. She's back.
Oh, can you hear me? Did you miss anything important?
You just kind of froze like doing this.
Oh, God, that's going to be gorgeous. It does say that my internet connection's unstable. I'll shut up soon anyway. But yeah, just make sure that if you feel like you don't have the tools to achieve the goals that you want to achieve, that you know who to ask. We're here and you can always get in touch at any time and we can help you navigate that goal setting process and also support you in the process of achieving those goals. So that is me. I feel like I fired through that as always.
That is absolutely fine. I'm going to see how I can stop sharing. There we go. Hang on a minute. Right, there was a few hands that went up. See if you put like your hand up. The chat. There we go. I think you need to click next slide. Oh no, that's you two. I thought yes, we've got a couple of questions here. No, that's not really messaging me. But what I would say is before we wrap up, we've blasted through that. If you have any questions, please just ask in the Q&A. But I think I wanted to add something that I had been saying on Instagram lately. And up here in Scotland, right, if you live in Scotland, it wasn't a surprise that the gyms weren't going to open for us anyway. We were all fully aware that it would probably be August. And down in England, if you've had that sort of hope that Boris gave you be pulled away or from underneath your feet, right when at the moment you thought you were going to get it. It's all right to be pissed off. It's all right to be angry. It's all right to be annoyed. But what it's not okay to be is to just let everything go to shit. Stop doing what you were doing, right? You've lasted for the past 13 weeks of whether you're training with bands, whether you're training with limited equipment. And you've probably, if you're on this podcast, if you're on this chat or you're watching this on YouTube, you're more than likely have made fucking awesome progress in this time period. So all I would say is, why are you frustrated if you can still continue to make progress? And you're probably saying, Ron, I'm pissed off because I want to give it the beans on a hack squat. I get it. But what I'm trying to say is, if your physique is still progressing in a manner which you want, in which all those goals that Clara just told you about, then keep doing it. Because everything in life is temporary.
Agreed.
Right? This will not be forever. Right? It's not the end of the world. Believe me, there was times when I thought it was the end of the world, when two coaches come on board in the same month that the gyms get fucking shut, right? But adapt and overcome, as a wise man or Ali Burge once said, right? So if you have any questions on anything that's been said on today's sort of webinar, please do reach out to us individually or as a collective. You can get in touch on Instagram, but if you think DMs are far too scary, send an email. We've all got separate links to arrange a coaching call, which you can do. If you liked the way I speak, or the way Clara spoke, or the way Ali spoke, we all write separate articles. They're on the website. Check them out, all free. You'll notice that me and Ali might sound a bit posher on those articles because Clara actually edits them for us. And the amount of times that Clara has sent me an email saying, Vaughn, that article doesn't make sense. There's loads of highlighted bits and this and the next thing. But hey, stick to your strengths, right?
Literally.
It's exactly it, right? So, Have you two got anything else you'd like to add?
I just want to say kind of, sorry, Ali.
No, you go.
I just kind of in line with what you were saying there earlier, that it's a shit, like obviously this whole year has kind of sucked, but you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you just kind of gave up. And as Vaughan said, like it is temporary, and even though it doesn't feel like it and it feels like it's been going on forever, because it has, you know, don't let yourself down, because ultimately if you've got certain goals, the time frame might have changed, but the goal in itself won't have. And like your motivation to achieve something that you've had in mind for a while, that's not going to change anytime soon. So make sure that you're still putting yourself first, and that you're not just using this as another reason to put your needs and your wishes and your goals on the back burner. Use it as a motivator, flip it on its head, and you know, and do what you set out to do, regardless of, you know, this everything that's going on. But yeah,
I'll just add a tiny bit more, but Clara actually covered a bit of it. But I think one of the things that, like, obviously frustration and everything like that can still be used as a positive, because you can use that energy to channel it towards positive things like training. But one thing that I think will happen to a lot of people, and it's something that needs to be controlled pretty hard, is we know that the gyms are going to be later opening up. We've all seen it. But social events are going to probably start moving. Remember what your goals are, because I've seen it before where people get distracted by shiny objects. And I know, like, that can be exciting, but at the end of the day, when you go home and look in the mirror, are you going to be happy with your choices? So remember, there's always people in the industry who are there if you need to chat, but stay focused on your goals, because that's where the respect comes from, when you achieve them, not from when you get distracted halfway through. So make sure the gyms are going to be there soon. We're all twiddling our thumbs just waiting. And believe me, training in the garden's shit, but it's not going to be forever, as Vaughan says. And you want to be closer to your goals when they open.